Hi, if you are new here, welcome. This channel is where I document what it's like learning ranch life and stewardship of our family's land in South Texas in real time. If you've been following along already, thank you for being here. For most of my life, I thought ranching was about cows. But the more time I spend around here, the more I realize ranching is really about water. No water means no grass. No grass means no cows. And no cows means no ranch. This may be the biggest project I have ever seen my brother undertake. Over the past couple of months, he has installed 3 new pivot systems. 2 of them are currently still in progress. Um, give or take 2 miles of pipe, multiple road crossings, county approvals, state permits, neighborhood agreements, and years of planning. And honestly, I don't think I fully understood what I was watching until recently. About 15 years ago, an oil company wanted to build a frac pond on my brother's property. And at that time, I thought he was crazy. He would be losing 20 acres of his land, preventing him from enjoying it. And I didn't understand why anybody would agree to that. But what I did not know is that my brother was thinking 15 years ahead. Part of that agreement gave him access to the water well. And at the time, I didn't appreciate how valuable that was. Today, I'm learning to. Because that water is now feeding tanks, supplying pivots, and helping to support hundreds of acres. I think my brother once told me if he had drilled that well himself, that it would have cost well over $100,000. Don't quote me on that. Didn't write it down, so I can't remember exactly. Anyhow, suddenly that frac pond started to make a lot more sense. What I've learned watching this project is that it isn't really about pivots. It's actually about building a system. Water comes from the well feeds the tanks water the cows, the well feed the pivot feed the grass, and the grass feeds the cows. Everything is connected. And the more time I spend around here, the more I realize that's how ranching works. Everything affects everything else. And one of these pivots is going onto a cattle lease, not even my brother's real property. I think that's worth mentioning because it says something about stewardship. A lot of people lease land, but not everybody improves the land they're leasing. My brother is investing in property he doesn't even own. And that's a pretty strong statement about how committed he is to taking care of the land he's responsible for. Another thing that surprised me was everything that had to happen just in order to get the water where it needed to go. John had to get permission from the state of Texas to bore underneath a farm to market. He negotiated with the county to cross the county road here. He worked with a neighboring landowner to bring water through their property. And in return, he helped improve part of their property too. Um, I believe he is building a tank on a corner of their property. And watching all of that happen made me realize ranching isn't just cows and tractors. Sometimes it's permits, sometimes it's negotiations, and sometimes it's relationships. And I'm curious what y'all think. If you inherited family land, would you leave it exactly the way you found it? Or would you make changes to improve it for future generations? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just genuinely curious about what you would do. I think I fall into the improve it for future generations, make it easier for them so that there's a higher chance that they're going to keep it in the family. One part of this project was surprisingly super emotional for me. About a month or two before Dad had passed away, I asked him about this little 20-acre patch of mesquite brush growing in the middle of one of the fields. And that patch had been there my entire life. And honestly, probably most of his life too. And I asked him why he always left it like that. And he told me something very simple, because his dad left it like that. And that was it. No complicated explanation, no grand plan. His dad left it, so he left it. And then, literally, about 2 days later, I learned that my brother John would be clearing that section to put in this new pivot system. Dad was okay with the change. He gave John his blessing for this project. The pivot made sense. The project, made sense. The economics made sense. And John was willing to do the work. But the first time I saw that field after the brush was gone, it hit me so much harder than I ever expected. And not because I missed the brush, but because it was another reminder that Dad is gone. Life moves forward, the ranch moves forward, projects continue, and improvements happen. And sometimes that's harder to see than you would think. All right, I just pulled up to the hill. I always have arrowheads on, and I just wanted to record my reaction. There was, I don't know, about 20 acres, guessing. That was still completely mesquite and brush over here. And not long before Dad passed away, I asked him, why do you keep this mesquite in the middle of these two fields? Because he planted on actually all four sides of this 20-acre mesquite patch. And he told me that was because my dad always did it that way. So he left it the way his dad always did it. Literally, like 2 days later, I found out that my brother was going to put a pivot system in this field, and that he was going to be taking out this native mesquite. And Dad was okay with it. He had Dad's blessing, but it's just so shocking to see all these changes. The thing I'm starting to understand is that these pivots really aren't about convenience. They're about resilience. They're about surviving drought. They're about producing forage when rain doesn't cooperate. They're about reducing risk. And they're about helping future generations hold onto the land. If you've spent any amount of time in South Texas, you know that drought isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. The only question is when. When is the next drought? And one of the biggest lessons I've learned from this project is that some decisions don't make sense until years later. 15 years ago, I saw a frack pond. Today, I see the beginning of an irrigation system. 15 years ago, I thought 20 acres had been lost. Today, I understand what was gained. And honestly, that's becoming a theme for me out here. The more time I spend around here, the more I realize how much thought has gone into things I never understood. And maybe that's what this whole journey has really been about. Not learning how to ranch, learning how to see. learning why things are done, learning how decisions are made, and learning how people think decades ahead. Because the people who built these ranches weren't thinking about next week, they were thinking about their next generation. And now, for the first time, I am really, really starting to understand that. If you're enjoying following along while I learn all of this in real time, I would really appreciate your support. Please like, comment, share, follow, bookmark. Send it to someone who loves ranching and farming and gardening or land stewardship. And I'll see you in the next episode. All right, guys, one of my future episodes is going to be all about the plant life here on our acreage. And if you know what either of these two things are, put it in the comments. I want to see. I have no idea what this is. So pretty, though. So pretty. I'm going to guess this is buffalo grass because I've seen it being planted. I recognize the seeds from filling up the planter, but I think this is buffalo grass. All right. Bye-bye. Have fun. Take care. See you next time. Be safe out there. Bring some rain to us, please.